This video is about an extraordinary couple of days I just spent with 5,000 Christians United for Israel organization. I want to tell you about that organization. And if you want to know more about my beliefs about the Jews' relationship with evangelicals, search on YouTube for Jewu number 83. Just put in Jewu, Jewu space 83, and it'll come up about Jews and evangelicals. I believe most Jews are afraid of evangelicals. They say, oh, they just want to convert you. Now, there may be some who do that, but that video talks about how they are our best friends on matters of anti-Semitism, on matters of security, on matters of Israel, and we need to have relationships with people on the issues that we have in common. Just like most liberal Protestant denominations are anti-Israel, but some Jews support them on some social issues, so you make coalitions where you can. So this conference, Christians United for Israel, CUFI, C-U-F-I, just began by a reverend named Hagee in Texas with a few hundred people, other ministers and leaders who came down to start it together just a few years ago, 6 years ago, and they already have 720,000 members. It's the largest pro-Israel organizations in the country by far, and it's an amazing, amazing group. Now, you think the 5 million Jews in America spread out over a few states have a huge effect on Israel? Well, they do have some effect, and AIPAC certainly has a powerful effect, the official Israel lobby, but we're talking here about 50 million American voters, evangelicals, who are Bible-based people who believe that God wants the Jewish people to live in Israel and who support the state of Israel and support Israel's right to self-determination. And that is a very powerful thing that Jews have to get on board of. Now, let me just tell you about what happened at this conference, which was amazing. First of all, it's basically done by volunteers. The executive director happens to be a Jewish guy, Harvard lawyer, Princeton undergraduate, who was Senator Arlen Specter from Pennsylvania, so chief of staff for 7 years. Before that, he worked in Israel, named David Brogue. I'll tell you a funny story. He was giving a talk to all 5,000 delegates about the lobbying effort, which would be on Wednesday. This was on Tuesday. Then he called for questions. So I ran up to the mic to ask a question. And the other mic, there was a Jew from Shomron who was there, from the West Judea and Samaria. So Brogue said, how do you like this? We're in 5,000 Christians, and the 3 people talking are Jewish. I know it's chutzpahdik, but you got to love us. And I'll tell you what I asked about in just a minute. So what is the basic goal of CUFI? It's to support Israel, to tell the world that Israel has a right to exist. In fact, the best right of any nation in history to exist. Israel has a right to self-determination, to secure and protected borders. And they had 3 lobbying points they wanted us to use on Wednesday when we went to meet congressional officials. Point number 1, the current presidential administration is putting the pressure on Israel. It's exactly the wrong place to put pressure. Israel's bent over backwards to make peace. The Palestinians have done nothing, and all the administration is doing is screwing up any possible prospects for peace by putting the pressure on Israel wrongly and undermining Israel. And so they urged us to tell Congress to put the pressure on the Palestinians to make concessions, which they've never done. Second of all, on foreign aid, because of the extreme economic problems in the United States, there's a few more louder voices about cutting aid to Israel. And the basic idea here was that what a terrible idea that is. I remember that when I was Rabbi in Minnesota, Senator Rudy Boschwitz was a member of mine. He told me the story that he was very close to President George Bush, the first George Bush, and he used to tell him what a metzia Israel is, that, which means a bargain, that for all the money and soldiers the United States invests in Korea and in Germany to protect the world, all it costs the United States is $3 billion a year and no soldiers to protect Israel, to assure Israel's qualitative military edge, to stop other wars. And most of that money, almost all of it, comes back to the United States in the purchases, and it's a huge bargain for the only democracy in the Middle East. And there is overwhelming support in the Congress for it, but that was point number 2. And point number 3 was Iran. And here, here's my question, and I know some of you watching this will think I'm completely deranged, but I am further to the right than AIPAC and CUFI on the matter of Iran. And my question was basically that AIPAC already blew it. They didn't demand Congress bomb Iran. They still believe in sanctions, which I think are a joke. Iran's laughing at us. They're just biding their time, and these sanctions will never have enough teeth to stop them. I said CUFI is our last chance. It looks like every day more compelling evidence that Iran will have nuclear weapon-grade material within the year, and at that point they'll turn it over to terrorists. There'll be suitcase. In fact, we saw this movie Uranium, and if your church contacts CUFI, you can get a free copy to show at your church. It normally costs $250, but you can get a free copy. Definitely show it. And talk about how we don't check our cargo coming into the United States. A suitcase bomb in the subways in New York or LA could kill tens of thousands of people. It doesn't need a nuke. There's all kinds of damage that Iran can do. So that was my question. These sanctions, when are we going to decide that they're not working and we have to take military action? Israel can't do it alone. It has to be the United States. And we were told by everyone that nobody on Capitol Hill is talking about it. They're all talking about Obama's and Clinton's idea that we can contain a nuclear Iran. That is the biggest joke in the world. Anyway, those were the three main talking points in the lobbying effort that we did. The emotions and the power of the spirit at that convention was unreal. I mean, there are contrasts with AIPAC. I go to the AIPAC conference too, and AIPAC has a lot more professional staff. They're a lot more geared to working all year long with congressional delegates, congressional representatives, and senators, and it's a much more cerebral conference. This had less speakers. They have much less staff. Their main thing is having churches do nights to honor Israel in their towns and bring together the Jewish and Christian community to honor Israel. But they don't need as much effort with Congress people, because when they visit Congress, as once a year, Congress knows they represent so far 720,000 members, 50 million voters, and that's a lot of leverage. And I found the prayer of the Christians unbelievably powerful. Now, and intense. I know a lot of the Jews who might be watching this are thinking, oh, they just want to convert us. And let me assure you, I was skeptical too. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. They kept talking about how you Jews are the chosen people. We're just grafted onto the tree as adopted children. And they were very clear from the podium saying, believe me, Jews already know we believe that Jesus is the Messiah. You don't have to tell them that. If they ask, all right. But otherwise, don't treat them like a rabbit's foot. Don't treat them like a candidate for conversion. We are here because we believe that God blesses Israel and blesses those who bless Israel from Genesis 12:3. We believe that America's future is tied to the blessings of Israel. That's their religious belief, and it drives them. And it drives them to give up vacation time and spend all this money and come to Washington in the middle of the hot summer and talk about this and go lobby because they love Israel and they love Jews. And I felt it myself. The love bombing was unbelievable. Just want to tell you about a couple of speakers. First of all, Dennis Prager. This was unbelievable. Dennis Prager, big radio guy, spoke, and he said, you know, every Jew has been seared by the Holocaust. And when you meet a Gentile, one of the questions that Jews sometimes say to themselves is, would that Gentile have saved me and my family during the Holocaust? Well, right now, I know that I'm in a room of 5,000 people that would have saved my family. That was like so powerful. Then Glenn Beck spoke, and he said, you know, he's not been a joiner. He's joined two organizations in his life, his church and the NRA. But because of the times, he's now joining CUFI, and he donated $10,000 to the college fund. Now, I'll come back to Glenn Beck in a second, but the college fund is so significant. CUFI is mainly volunteers, and they take all this membership money, and one of the things they did with it is they brought 500 college students, all expenses paid, to this conference and trained them, because the Jewish kids on college campuses are so outnumbered by the huge army of anti-Israel, anti-Semitic groups now, that the only chance that Israel has on college campuses to make its case is going to be these Christian kids who come back and ally themselves with the Jewish kids. And that's why it's so important. Then Glenn Beck, he gave a magnificent speech. He's an unbelievable speaker, as is Dennis Prager. He talked about how, quoted Ruth, where you go, I will go, your God will be my God, your people will be my people, where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. Nothing but death can part me from you, he said to the Jewish people. And then he said, we're all Jews here today. I mean, it was just amazing. We also heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, and I heard a lot of mutterings in the group, that's too bad he's not our president. And he thanked the CUFI members and the CUFI delegates for their outstanding support for the state of Israel. And I just want to close with a story about We heard from a couple of Israeli colonels and Senator Lieberman. There were a lot less politicians at this event than there are at AIPAC. But one of the Israeli colonels who supervises 20,000 soldiers told an unbelievable story. His mother keeps saying, "You're a hero, you're in charge of 20,000 soldiers in Israel." He said, "Mom, you're the hero." His mother and her sister were the only members of their 8 siblings who survived the Holocaust. When they got to Auschwitz, Mengele, the Nazi doctor in charge of selections, sent all the kids to one side, but the twin girls he saved because they were experimenting on twins. The soldier said that his aunt, all the experiments were done on her, and her hips were completely ruined, and she was raped every night by the same Nazi guard. Well, then there was a 500-mile death march of the women from the camp through the snow in the middle of winter in Poland without boots. And because of his aunt's hips being ruined, his mother carried her the entire 500 miles. Anyway, they survived, and his mother didn't get her period until she was 37, and then the miracle of having him. The aunt had a child right away, and then she died. And the girl grew up and now has 49 descendants who live in Israel. And this colonel said, "Mom, you're the hero. Look what you've done." He also gave an amazing video presentations of how the IDF is so careful, the Israeli Defense Forces, trying to prevent collateral damage, in other words, civilian deaths, whereas the terrorists try everything they can to kill as many innocent Jews and Israelis as they can. All in all, it was an amazing conference. If you really want an inspiring experience, if you're Christian, definitely go. And if you're Jewish too, just to be there and show support, it's going to be next July 16th through 18th again. I'm going for sure. It was an exhilarating, amazing experience, and I hope some of you will think about it. And if not, at least join CUFI. Their website is CUFI.org, and make a donation and support their work, and get your pastor on board with this to have a night to honor Israel. The night to honor Israel was unbelievable. Besides Glenn Beck and Pastor Hagee, who's a magnificent preacher, they had lots of Bible readings were all from the Hebrew Bible, and all the music was Israeli Jewish music sung by their choir. It was just a fantastic, beautiful evening and a very powerful few days. Thank God for our Christian friends and their support for the state of Israel.